Welcome to the Where Are We Going Now podcast, where you meet interesting and crazy people, hear their stories on how they navigated through their own life, to hopefully give you some insight on how you'd like to navigate your life. Welcome to the Where Are We Going Now podcast, episode 13. Today I'm here with Joel Marsh. He is a maker of films, and I've met Joel almost 2 years ago now. Our guest in episode 11, Brendan Sargent, was moving out here, and he introduced me to Joel, and Joel's the biggest sweetheart you'll ever meet. And so say hi to the people, Joel.
Hi guys, how you going? I'm your first New Zealander guest, right?
So many people just got excited.
I'm sorry, I'm just another American. Yeah. I'm sorry to disappoint you guys.
Joel, you're from Natick, Massachusetts, home
Indeed.
of the Natick Mall. I don't know anything else that it's home to.
Well, yeah, the Natick Mall, whenever I mention it to people have, if they've been to Massachusetts and just outside Boston, they've been to the Natick Mall. Because it's it's like one of the biggest malls.
I like that mall a lot.
The eastern seaboard. And I used to go there. It's funny you bring that up with, like, right after the New Zealand accent, because I used to go there in high school, and I was too nervous to pick up girls. And I would speak in a New Zealand accent to strange honeys. And it was a very short-sighted plan, because I knew that I could initiate, and I had a bunch of story. I was like, I'm an exchange student. I'm from Manipuri, New Zealand. It was like a whole thing. I had a Facebook page. I'm a creepo. And but I realized it could never get to a second date or a third date. It's like, what if I was like meeting this girl's parents?
Wait. You had an alternate Facebook page.
Yeah. His name was Aaron Princeton.
So you were catfishing before catfishing.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, absolutely.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So both of your parents were doctors.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy to me, because not for nothing, but you must be a very intelligent guy, and we haven't had too many conversations where I'm like, why didn't Joel get into science? You know what I mean?
Yeah. My mom is a pediatrician and my dad's a biologist, and they're both two of the smartest people I've ever met. And there's a high bar for achievement in my family for sure. Amazingly, I didn't feel a lot of pressure to become a scientist or a doctor. They were really supportive. Luckily, I have an older brother who decided to become a neuroscientist, so that took a little bit of pressure off my back.
When you were growing up and you saw your older brother making these steps, at one point in time, was he ever like, hey, are you going to do this? Or at one point in time, were you ever like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was always... I was at least pressured to look like I was working hard in whatever I was doing, you know? And I'm very adept at looking like I'm working hard. I got a lot of like buzzwords and stuff for family reunions. But I think my brother's path was sort of unclear in certain times. Like, he was a history major at a certain time and then switched over to like organic chemistry and things like that and started getting into neuroscience. But then at some point he like worked at the Apple store. So it's like everybody has a weird path to wherever they're going. And
exactly what this podcast is about.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I think it was just that, like, my parents always wanted to make sure, like, I never felt any pressure that wasn't appropriate in my mind. Like, it wasn't like, hey, you need to take over a family business, or you need to like go into this because that's what we do, or that's what this family, like, both my parents are kind of black sheep in their families. They were both the ones who, like,
the rest of your family's garbage men? What do you mean? They're doctors.
There are a lot of blue collar people on my dad's side, and my mom's side, various careers, but they at least like moved away from their families. Like, almost my entire family lives in the Midwest, and and my parents both like moved to California and then moved to Boston, and they were really like adventurers and out on their own, and they wanted kids who had their heads screwed on straight, but not like pressure for pressure's sake, you know.
They wanted to bring up good people.
Yeah. And I think they did a great job.
I do too.
They forced the Judaism on me a lot, which I eventually shied away from.
That was my next question.
It's my next question for everyone is, at what point did Judaism leave you? No, I when I was a kid, they really wanted me to have Jewish friends. They sent me to a Jewish day school. I was just like, I never quite bought into it. The praying always seemed like just saying random words, and I was never into it for...
Are you any religious at all, or are you just
No, I'm an
guiding?
atheist, but I do feel Jewish. And so I have been to Israel. I went on Birthright, and amazingly, like the soldiers I met there, like the Israeli soldiers, they're like, yeah, we're atheists too, like, but we're Jewish.
Whoa.
Yeah. So it's an interesting, like, Judaism, I think, allows for that freedom in your own belief system. It's just like...
How old were you when you make that homage?
I was 22 when I went to
Okay.
Israel. Yeah.
Is
So
that
it's
something
pretty
you
old.
can do whenever?
Yeah, I think from maybe age 16 onward or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Until you're 26. But it's
And then once
unbelievable.
you turn 26, the door is closed,
The door is
and you cannot
closed.
be Jewish.
Yeah. You have to convert to Russian Orthodox. Yeah, it's a really amazing program that I don't know how the money keeps coming in. It's like old, rich Jewish people being like, yeah, send kids to Israel.
Doctors just trying to get their
Seriously,
kids there.
it's unbelievable. And it's like, if you don't mind me saying, a fuck fest out there.
I don't
like,
mind
it's
at all.
like,
I actually encourage
it was... I didn't hook up with anybody because I am sexually nervous.
Because you were doing an Australian accent.
Yeah,
New
exactly.
Zealand,
I
New
was
Zealand.
like, hi guys, how you going? Where's everybody going? To Tel Aviv? Huh? Yeah, I just like I had this weird like self-imposed moral code for most of my life where I was like, I don't have sex because I respect people, and then it's like no, like women want to have sex with you too. I don't know.
Were your parents, because like you got into film early in your life, you knew you enjoyed it, at least, not that that's what you wanted to do forever, but were your parents at all like movie people, or you also did a lot of improv when you were younger? Were they comedy people? Were they straightforward? How did you kind of find yourself in these situations where you're like, hey, I like that?
Ant's doing a great job here, guys, by the way, because he probably for 3 weeks straight was like, hey, can you send me a bio? Send me a bio real quick. Hey, when you get a chance, send me a little bio of your life. And I thought, like, foolishly, I was like, he's going to post this bio along with the episode.
No.
And so I thought that's what it was. And then this morning I woke up and he was like, hey, dude, just at some point before the studio, like, just please send me that bio. And it clicked. The light clicked on in my head. I was like, oh, shit, this is so that he knows something to go on about me for the episode. We're not just going to bullshit.
Me and Brittany were cursing you out in my apartment this morning.
Sure.
Like, Joel!
I'm sure. I know. Yeah. And then I sent him like 5 lines that's like, I grew up here. I don't know. I liked Robin Williams.
Most people get really in depth. Joel wanted me to come in blind. So he, whenever he says, I can't dispute it.
I like to be a bit of an enigma. Yeah. When you excuse you. Yeah, so when I was a kid, I loved movies from an early age, but I wouldn't say my parents were movie people necessarily, but they did like my dad showed me Star Wars and Indiana Jones and stuff like that, and I loved those type of movies. And I remember early on...
Big Harrison Ford guy.
Big Harrison. I mean, I was a Star Wars guy in all ways, but I was a Luke guy. I was like, I really liked Luke, even though he's a bit of a weenie. And my brother was always Han when we would play, and I was always Luke. And he thought of himself as a bit of a scurvy rogue, and I was sort of like the goody two-shoes boy. But I Star Wars was definitely a formative influence on me, both in filmmaking and just in getting interest, like in storytelling in general. Because I don't think that like early in my life I was like a performative kid, like until I started watching movies and stuff like that. I mean, I think that's probably true for everybody. Yeah, sure. But at a certain point, I was like watching movies and then translating, oh man, I can do some of the stuff that they're doing in there for myself. And I remember asking I asked my grandma for a camera for my bar mitzvah, and she gave it to me, and that was like the spark that I just started doing these like little improvised videos. I would do them by myself. I'd just set the camera up and I'd like put a wig on and I would just talk to the camera for a half an hour. I remember one of them was Luciano Stefano was one of my characters. He was like this old man, and then all of them had tenuous connections to each other, and
They're all in the same realm.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'd do one where he'd be like, Luciano Stefano's my grandfather, and it was like a Marvel universe. Like early on, I was creating an intricate web. And the improvised videos I started making with my buddy Ben, who I grew up with, and we would do like dual improvised videos and then some fight scenes and stuff, and that definitely started me along the filmmaking route.
Do you have any of these still?
Yeah, I think I have a lot of them. I made a 3 DVD box set at one point as a gift for Ben's birthday.
Sent that to Blockbuster.
Yeah, exactly. It was unceremoniously rejected by Blockbuster. So I took great pride that they went out of business. But they're extremely not funny. I have to say, like rewatching them, I thought they were the funniest thing in the whole world, and they're very embarrassing, as all kids' videos are. But that's like the earliest I can ever remember doing improv. Like just being like, hey, we have no plan going into this. There was one specifically where me and Ben were the King of England and his butler, and it was just like that was the only thing we knew going in. And then we filmed for like 45 minutes and just talked about like our lives and like that concept of we're just making it up and this is all like just invented in front of us.
Did you know what improv was at that time, or were
No.
you just that's crazy?
It was
That's
just
great.
it was just seeing movies, being like, oh, those are stories, and then making up stories for ourselves.
So you were 13 when you got this camera, and then you went to high school. I assume you didn't get held back. You seem like a smart guy. And
I think I'm smart, yeah.
Yeah. Just making sure you didn't like do 8th grade 8 times and you didn't get to high school till you were 16.
Yeah, I'm 40 and I just got my GED.
So when you went to high school, did film progress in high school? Did it kind of shy off? What kind of happened there? Did you have more friends, more people that were into it?
I had a really good high school experience where I think people who are into like film and acting and like so-called nerdy stuff like generally kind of get a bad rap in high school, whereas like I found a ton of confidence in it. Like I got to high school and I played baseball. I was like really sporty in that regard and had some friends over there, but then I had these other interests like film and acting and improvising that I was sort of feeding on the side, but it wasn't something that I ever had to like keep secret. All my baseball friends knew that I was like acting and making films and stuff, and they all loved it. They all loved that like I would like invite them to come like be in stuff, or they could always like make a video with me and stuff like that. It was like it was exciting for them too. And I remember like high school is the earliest I can ever remember being like filmmaking could be a career for me. I had an English class and the teacher showed a video, a short film that's called More, M-O-R-E. And it's 10 minutes long. It's by this filmmaker, Mark Osborne. It's claymation, no words in it. And it's to this day one of the greatest films I've ever seen in my life. I rewatch it like every 6 months. It's just so inspiring. It is directly about a creative person's creative pursuit and also an amazing emotional journey of just a human being over their lifespan. It's the basic theme of it is how to retain your creativity and push it towards the world without losing the initial spark of inspiration that makes it valuable.
Wow.
And so it's really like the film itself is about it's a guy who's living in this really depressive world. He works in a factory, but he has this door, literally a door in his stomach that a light shines out of. And then he figures out that there's if he takes some of the light that's coming out of his stomach and puts it into a product, it makes this insanely inspiring product to other people. And he sells the product. He becomes the greatest inventor of all time. And he's sitting behind his desk like as the chairman of this company. And he opens up the door and there's no more light coming out of it. And so he's like completely lost that by becoming this like businessman and successful and all this. And so it's not only a good film to go back to as like, whoa, this was my first inspiration, but it's a great film to go back to realize don't forget where you came from. Don't forget what makes you want to do this. And
Have you ever forgotten where you came from?
There's been a couple times when, in the last couple years, when it's become about money, or I'm doing things that aren't necessarily as creatively fulfilling, and I need to return to a state of, I love doing creative things. I love working on something with my friends where it breaks all the rules and it costs no money and things like that. And it's a good film to return to remind me that there's a reason other than a career that I do what I do.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So high school seemed pretty cool for you anyways.
Yeah. Best thing about high school was the speech team, I gotta say. I was the speech team. Did you ever do speech or debate or anything like that?
No, not in high school anyways.
It was a great thing because it organized that piece of me that wanted to act. I did want to make films, definitely, but I was definitely more of an actor in high school. I wanted to become an actor in film or stage or whatever during that time. I wasn't doing plays, but the speech team was perfect for me because it activated the part of my brain that was competitive and the part that was performative. It's basically competitive acting 10 minutes at a time. You enter an event. My main event was humorous interpretation. You take an already written piece by an author or a comedian or something like that. You perform a 10-minute version of that as best you can, and you get judged on it.
That's cool.
Yeah, you would go to a tournament on the weekend. You'd dress up in a suit. You'd go into a room.
Out-talk the shit out of you.
Yeah, exactly. It was out-talking everybody else. And it was
great.
so exciting for me, too, because you'd get in this room, you'd perform, and you literally got a position 1 through 6. Were you the best? Were you the worst?
Wow.
And then you would get to the finals, and the people who didn't get to a finals would come to the finals and be in the room. And especially events like humorous interpretation, your room would be packed with people from these other schools. You've never met these kids. They're from completely other towns, all wearing suits, staring at you, performing this piece. And there was an ease in that of, I haven't written this. It's not my own material. I'm not performing stand-up. If they don't think it's funny, I can also blame that on the material if I need to. So there was always a little bit of a ripcord, get me out of here. But I was also just really good at it. I did children's literature, humorous interpretation, duo, which was a cool event, which is 2 performers, but they can't look at each other. You can't make eye contact, and you can't touch each other. So we performed, I think we did Spaceballs, a 10-minute version of Spaceballs, Robin Hood Men in Tights, The Matrix. We did all these different there was
really cool.
fight scenes in the Matrix one, but you can't make contact with each other, so it was all mind and stuff.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so it was really that was a lot of fun for me. And then at a couple tournaments there were improv events too that was an optional thing. So I
Do you get a Letterman jacket for that kind of thing?
I wish.
I think they should. I
know.
I think that's a thing that
I got a lot of trophies.
Did you?
Yeah, and I loved trophies at the time.
Yeah.
I was so enticed by shiny things. I really was. And recently my mom was cleaning out my room because she repainted it and made it into a guest room. And she I had this huge shelf full of trophies, and she's like, Joel, can I throw out some of your trophies?
Whoa!
And I
think
think it was pretty big of me. I said, yeah. I said,
really?
You can throw them out. Yeah.
Oh my God! I would.
Yeah.
I would.
I'll accept a round of applause now. For those listening, this is me applauding for myself.
So I think that's really cool because we did.
Thank you, dude. Oh man, what a relief.
Not the self-applause. But I think that's really cool that your school had that kind of thing because that's something I might have been interested in. Maybe Brendan would have been interested in it. For the people listening to this, Brendan was our guest 2 weeks ago. He's also sitting in the room. I think that's really cool because a lot of schools, and I think they should give Letterman jackets because that's a huge skill. To have, whether you're trying to be an actor or you're just trying to make a presentation for a bunch of CEOs. Yeah. That's a huge skill to have. Yeah. I trip up on words, a lot.
Totally.
So that's really cool.
Yeah, it sharpened my brain quite a bit. And it was also, I was hanging out with people at the time who I considered to be much smarter than me, much more articulate.
The speech crowd.
Yeah, the speech crowd. A couple really, really good friends that I made there really sharpened my brain because they were into sharpening their own brains. So hanging out with them was a constant like mental marathon, not in a tiring way, but in a let's challenge ourselves way.
Yeah.
And a couple of my best friends, they went to like Ivy League schools and became like incredibly successful people and will continue to be. And I hope to count myself among them because like this group was so important to me in my mental development that I think if I had not joined the speech team and not been with those people, I would have continued along a route where I would have been happy because I can adapt to a lot of situations, but I wouldn't have developed a side of me that now I call my main ethos. That is like, as a filmmaker, as a writer, as a comedian, as any of these things, that's a piece of my brain that is so valuable, and I am eternally thankful to those people that I was hanging out with at that time.
Sure. That's crazy, man. It's crazy that because you said those are your formative years, you know, that's something that sticks with you. Whereas like me, you know, I was paving roads. It's very crazy, but yet we find ourselves here in the same room. That's brilliant to me. So after high school, you went to Northeastern.
I did, yeah. My dad is a professor at Northeastern. He retired recently, but he was a professor at Northeastern. So both me and my brother went there. And thank you, Dad. Free tuition is great.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's huge. And Northeastern, that's a 5-year school, right?
Yeah, it's 5 years, but I did it in 4 because
Really?
I'm kind of a smart kid. No, it was there's the 5th year is filled out by co-op, which is just like an internship, and I just didn't do any internships. I am going to strike a strong relief from Brendan where he's worked actual jobs. I have almost never worked any job in my life. I worked at CVS when I was 15 through 20 or something like that. I worked as like a cashier and
big stretch at CVS.
I loved CVS. I got a lot of love in my heart for CVS, and my manager at the time, Artie Larkin, may he rest in peace. He hired me, and he always believed in me. He like poached me to different stores. He would move to a different store, and he'd be like, "Come with me to the new store. I'll give you a raise."
What does CVS stand for?
Consumer Values Store.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's good knowledge.
Yeah.
Good knowledge.
It was great. I had a great experience there. I fell in love with one of my coworkers, Isabel. Isabel, if you're listening, don't leave your husband. Don't leave your many kids.
But if you do, don't bring the kids.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. So what was Northeastern like? Because Natick isn't, is a smallish town anyways. You got the mall there, but it's a small town.
We got the mall there. We got 100 pizza shops.
And then were you living at Northeastern or did you commute?
I was. Yeah, it was important to me to live there.
Yeah, and for those of you that have never seen Northeastern, it's in Back Bay in Boston. It's a huge, huge section of that part of the city. And so what was that like? What was that transition like for you?
I loved being in Boston because it was close enough to home that I could always go back if I wanted to, but it was a really independent experience, like living in the dorms in college. Like, I just had such a blast. I gained so much weight first freshman year.
I can't imagine that.
I mean, you should see pictures of me at that time. It was crazy. The thing that happened, and I can tell you exactly why I gained that weight, was I would buy Klondike bars. Listeners will probably be familiar with Klondike bars. The slogan is, "What would you do for a Klondike bar?" And I would buy like 12 packs of Klondike bars. I would put them in a plastic bowl. I put one in a plastic bowl. Put it in the microwave it for 6 seconds, no more, no less. That would melt the ice cream inside, but not the outside chocolate. Then you take it out, you use a spoon, much like creme brulee, to crack the chocolate like an egg.
Did you just compare creme brulee?
One of the classiest desserts on planet Earth, a staple of French fine dining, to a Klondike bar. Yes, I would crack it, and then I would drink the ice cream and then eat the chocolate. And I had 2 of those a day.
Oh.
I was on 2-a-days. That was not a setup joke, by the way. It sounds like I was like gunning for a punchline right there.
Yeah, whatever you have to tell yourself. So,
Guys, have you ever had a Klondike bar? Let me tell you, I would do a lot of things.
So at Northeastern, we're moving on. What were you? What did you first start studying when you were there? Did it change at all? And what was did your friend kind of people you were hanging out with, did that change at all from, the transition?
Good question. Very, very good question.
Again, this is my job.
Got there, started studying communications, and I loved it, though I think if I had studied something else, I probably would have gained the communication knowledge anyway because I was interested in that field, and I would have had extra knowledge. Like I always wish that I studied some philosophy or psychology.
Yeah, sure.
I took some psychology classes and a couple classes that like breached the topic of philosophy, but I wanted a dedicated like philosophy class because anytime I've read philosophy, I've been really like enlivened by it, like by learning how other people view the world, obviously. But communications was wonderful because it was a heavy bent towards media at the school, and we learned a lot about like film and TV and news and reporting and journalism and a lot of things like that. And I then like tilted my study towards film. I did a minor in film theory and film production. And being sort of like a big fish in a small pond, not that Northeastern is a small school, but there was a small community of filmmakers.
Yeah.
The staff was super supportive of the filmmakers. There was like maybe 10 of us who were really, really passionate about making stuff, and there were always like grants and scholarships that we could apply for that kind of stuff.
And obviously you got to use their equipment. So what was that the first time you used high quality equipment?
Yeah, definitely. I at some point I received a scholarship that was really a cool scholarship
From
that
CVS, yeah.
It was exactly. It was Artie Larkin reached out to me. He said, "Hey, CVS wants to sponsor you. You just have to wear a CVS bib at all times." I got this scholarship called the Hague Scholarship at Northeastern, which is named after this alumnus from Northeastern who passed away, I think, from cancer, and his mother runs the scholarship and gives it every year, and it's like $2,000. It's like a pretty minor scholarship, but her personal connection to the applicant is really important, and me and her got very close. How
did that come about?
It was just I saw the scholarship on the list of scholarships, and it sounded like an interesting thing, and I wrote her a letter that kind of detailed why I thought like I was a good candidate for it, and I used that money to buy a 5D, which was like the new wave in filmmaking at the time, like around 2009, 2010, was these DSLRs. They're like normally still cameras, but Canon had added video capability to them, and it looked really good for like all of you cinematography people who are listening, which I'm sure there are a lot.
A ton.
It was the first cheap camera that had a full frame sensor, meaning it viewed the entire field of view of the lens instead of cropping in. So it allowed you better depth of field and more wide lens capability and things like that. It was just a great camera for like low budget filmmakers. And I bought that with the funds from the scholarship and then proceeded to make almost every film through college with that camera.
Nice.
So it was super helpful. And Northeastern was really supportive of me in getting those films out and like finishing those films and stuff because I had been kind of a compulsive not finisher of things in my high school days, and this college really converted me into like a finisher of things, which was super helpful. And then to address like the hanging out with people thing, I started doing improv full time basically in college from freshman year. And that was, again, another thing where, like, the people I was with were constantly training my brain.
Yeah.
And a mutual friend of mine and Brendan's, Chris Rosignol, was on the improv team when I got on, and he became my best friend in college. And throughout college, we just, like, made jokes constantly, and that was like my comedy training was just this improv team. We were so raw, so untrained. We never had an improv teacher. We always were we did a lot of short form, so we were like we were pretty crowd pleasing in that regard. Every show of ours was like the laughs were just built in. And then my senior year, we started doing a little more long form and honing our group a little bit more. But anyone who was on that team at the time is probably, they're definitely not listening to this. But if you are listening to this, you're like, Joel, you were such an asshole during that time. And I think I was. I fancied myself. I had such a huge head at the time. Throughout college, that was my egotistical time. I thought I felt so superior. I felt so amazing and talented and incredible. And the whole world was telling me like, "You're gonna do huge things, man." And I feel I was always a nice guy, but I don't know. The improv team I kind of ran into the ground a little bit by the end of college.
Oh no.
I didn't ruin anything, but I think I got too into the competitive nature of improv, where it was like we should go to like competitions and we should be in the college improv tournament and we should only take half a squad to these tournaments and we should vote on who gets to be in this. It was just like people wanted to be more fun than
you're trying to make cuts and people are just trying to make jokes.
Yeah. Exactly. So,
I get it.
It was the director in me, I think, showing it's rearing its head a little bit more.
Now, these films that you made in college, what were they about? Did you write them? Mm-hmm. So what were you kind of writing about then? Obviously, I would assume your writing style has either progressed or changed, either way. So what was that like for you to start out there? Do you have those films? Do you watch those films? What do you think of those films now?
Yeah, I still watch those films sometimes, and I'm a person who a lot of people say like, oh, I can't watch my own stuff, or like I can't revisit old things that I've done, and I kind of like to every now and again go back and watch the stuff that I made previously because it kind of puts me back in that headspace that I was in at the time. I think at the time I was writing a lot about love. I had fallen in love for the first time in college with one of my high school friends, and we dated pretty much throughout college. And I think every film that I made during that time can pretty much be boiled down to like love in some way. Mm-hmm. And that can be like a general, you can probably take any film out of the annals of film history and be like, how can I make this seem like it was about love?
Yeah, for sure.
And so it's
even
such
Jaws,
a giant, yeah exactly. That shark just loved those people so much. I wanted to be close to them. So I think I do like to make films about love, about death maybe, because it's something I haven't had to deal with that much. And surprisingly, in my writing, like in my personal life, I never not want to be making jokes. I always just want to be doing bits with people and like having fun. Yeah. And then in my writing, it's almost always dramatic. It's introspective, it's dramatic, it's like heavy. And I think it's because like I think of myself as an adaptive comedian, in that I fit into comedic situations well and then ameliorate them. Like I can take a comedic game and mutate it and create more out of that and find a deeper meaning and exploit the game. But creating the game is not necessarily like my strongest suit, I think. And that's me being self-critical. But so me out of the blue writing a comedic script, I tend to get into the weeds of like, how do I make jokey dialogue? When really it's like comedy is basically at its purest, especially comedy writing for TV and stuff, is like, how do I put these characters that I've drawn into a funny situation, and then boom, that's it.
Right. Just to go back 1 second, when you were saying that in your life you like to do bits, and then in your writing you like to do more drama, I think that's more of you're a well-rounded person.
I hope so.
I really I wouldn't go too much further into that you're a well-rounded person.
I'll take it, yeah.
And like you said, do you really write comedies? Like, obviously you write comedies, but a lot of it is like, well, if you just put this scenario together, you can create something out of that. Yeah. More than just when you're writing a drama, you're thinking about, intense situations where dialogue is much more important.
And
maybe
I
not.
think my favorite films, a number of my favorite films are purely drama, like There Will Be Blood or.
Give me your top 5 real quick.
Oh man, it's tough. I do love There Will Be Blood. I love Children of Men is one of my favorite films of all time.
Cool.
Love the movie Force Majeure. I like Hot Fuzz is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Those guys are great.
As a teenager, my favorite movie was Elephant, the Gus Van Sant movie, which is no more relevant than today. It's about a school shooting, and it's like it's told in these incredibly long takes, like from different vantage points, and it's a really beautiful film that I would invite anybody to revisit nowadays.
In your bio, you said he is someone that's influenced you greatly. So explain on that.
I think he was one of the first feature filmmakers that I was watching with an eye towards how film could make you feel. This was after watching that short film more and starting to explore films in a way other than, wow, this is entertainment and exciting and feel good. His movies, it really explored a sensitivity that I had never seen. There's a movie that he did called Paranoid Park about a kid who accidentally kills a guy in a train station and then is like dealing with the guilt and consequence of that for the rest of the movie. And it's really sensitive and slow and played out in real time, and sometimes like there's a shot of the kid walking down the hallway in slow motion for so long, and that kind of thing as a young filmmaker built me into the person that I am today in terms of directing, where I like to see things play out for a long time and things sit and deal with the real consequences of things and have like actors get stuck in a scene and really like explore that kind of stuff. So Gus Van Sant was kind of the first director that I was exploring his movies with a critical eye towards how these made me feel.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So college comes and goes.
It did.
Yeah, it did. Quickly, I assume.
Towards the end of college, I had a film called One Step Forward that I made with my friend Ben, Ben's my oldest friend. We met when we were 3 years old.
Ben, the kid from the improv that you were just filming with your camera, that Ben?
Yeah, exactly.
Whoa.
Yeah. So
callback.
We met when we were 3 years old, and the first words I said to him, I said, "Do you want to play hopscotch?" And he said, "No."
I'm with Ben. If you were playing hopscotch, you're a loser.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know why I was so into hopscotch when I was 3. And then we have been solidly friends for over 25 years. And
wow.
He has been a major source of inspiration for me in bringing me new music and new movies and different points of view. He's so sensitive and so creative, and a really interesting dude. And we have made movies together for years. And especially we started doing these 48-hour film projects, which are you go to a certain location on a weekend and they give you a character, a line of dialogue, and a prop that you have to put in your movie, and then you pick from a hat a genre. And so basically they're just making it so that you have to have made the movie that weekend.
Yeah.
And from that point, when you get that, you have 48 hours in which to write, shoot, edit, and complete the entire movie.
Oh, wow.
And so we made this movie One Step Forward as part of that film festival, and it's one of the greatest movies we've ever made, and I'm so proud of it, and it's done fairly well at certain festivals and online, and it's just such a joyous film. It has almost no dialogue. It's probably the closest film to that short film of like, this is communicating on a level other than language, and it's like the opposite end of the spectrum in terms of tonally. It's very happy, but it's communicating a worldwide truth about ourselves that wordlessly that can go across language barriers. Like at a certain point after we made the movie, it won that festival. It won like best editing, best cinematography, best directing, best
Oh,
picture,
really?
at that festival, which means that it was sent to the greater, like the entire nationwide 48-hour film project. And then it was posted online, and then it went viral in Japan on Yahoo Japan's homepage. Like Ben texted me one morning, he was like, there's this huge spike in like viewership of this movie, like what's going on? And then I track it down to Yahoo Japan, and that speaks to like the universality of it. Is like there's like 2 lines of dialogue at the beginning, and then the rest is wordless, and it ends with an image. I don't want to ruin it for those of you who are going to go watch it
Spoiler
and
alert,
love it so
Spurs.
much. There's a universal image at the end of like love and connection that is just really joyous, and hopefully we could leave you feeling like very happy at the end of the film.
How long is the duration of the film?
It's 4 minutes and 26 seconds.
Oh, guys, go watch the film.
Go watch the
What are
film.
you
It's called
doing?
One Step Forward.
Where can they find that film?
It's on Vimeo. I think it's on YouTube as well. And it's the only film that I've ever made that has had remakes of it. People have like remade
Really?
it online. Yeah. There was
Whoa.
at one point, a festival in Malaysia had like I got a bunch of emails one day that was like, hey, somebody ripped off your film and won $10,000 off of it. And it was a film festival in Malaysia. This guy had made a basically shot-for-shot remake of the film and won the film festival. And so the film festival like found our film and pulled the film and took back the prize money from him and whatever. And
they didn't give it to you, did they?
No, this is such a shame.
You should have been like, well, while I'm here.
Yeah, exactly. There was an inspiring film that this was based on that maybe you can fund.
That's funny.
Ben and I there's this thing called the Vimeo tip jar where you can like donate to filmmakers if you like open it up, and we opened it up on that video, and we've still never seen a penny from it. It's not effective at all.
That's really funny.
It's really, but that film, it went to like, it was the first film that I had that was like requested by festivals. Festivals would be like, can we please play this movie? And Ben and I did interviews with places, and
That's so cool.
eventually the movie went to Cannes and like was in the short corner at Cannes, and we went there and saw it like screened at Cannes, and I wasted my time there because I was just having so much fun. Like I should have been like, hi, my name's Joel and I'm a filmmaker. Like, can you represent me or can you hire me? And instead I was like, what's up? How y'all doing? Like, I just like partied all day long and went on the beach and people watched. I had such a great time, and Cannes was a once in a lifetime experience, and that film has brightened my filmmaking experience so much in that the film was made for $200. It was made in 48 hours, and it's just like it's such proof that all you need is like a good idea and good execution, and there you go.
Yeah, that's phenomenal.
Not that I'm saying I have good ideas and I'm good at executing them, but watch the film.
That's really phenomenal. And when you were at Cannes, what was that feeling like, seeing that being played? Was it different than, because you had already known this movie was successful, was it different than seeing, the spike in viewership? Was it different than, getting emails from festivals? Because that's a big deal.
It was definitely a legitimacy factor of it. It's kind of like how, like, we're all in the creative field, and we know that, like, our parents are looking at us, like, what are they doing? And it's like, if there's, like, a newspaper article written about you, all of a sudden your parents are like, he was in the newspaper.
Yeah.
He was in the newspaper, so he's successful now. It's like, I've been doing this for years, and I thought I was doing pretty
really
good.
Sound like that?
No, no.
Boston accent with a lisp.
Yeah, my parents are two lispy Bostonians, Bostonian doctors. No, they're quite the opposite. In fact, they're both from Ohio and have very Midwestern accents. And I think that's how I got my voice to be this way.
I think you have a good voice.
It's a fine voice. When I hear it, I think it's too high, but who doesn't?
Yeah, right.
That's just what happens. But yeah, the Cannes was definitely an era of legitimacy, and I was on top of the world during that time in a lot of ways. I had graduated from college that year. It was all in a row. Graduated from college, went to Israel on birthright, went straight from Israel to Cannes.
Oh, wow.
And then, traveled around Europe for like 3 months. And so it was like It was everything at once. I was like a successful filmmaker. I had a degree. At that point, I had gotten into USC as well for grad school and was like planning to go there in the fall.
Did you fall into a deep depression when it all ended?
I did not. I think my deep depression started a lot later, when I was out of school and I had to deal with real life.
Yeah.
But I was on a high for a long time.
So yeah, I would imagine so.
When I traveled around Europe, I lost all the Klondike weight, and then I finally kicked the Klondike weight, and I was walking everywhere. I still had hair. You guys can't see me, but Ant and I are mirror images of each other.
It's not true. We are both bald, but we don't look anything alike.
But he has better style than me. I dressed up for this podcast by wearing a shirt that has holes in both armpits.
It's just quick, easy use for deodorant.
It's ventilation.
We get it. We get it.
So I got back from Europe and moved to Los Angeles, started going to USC.
What made you apply to USC?
It was a bit of a last-minute decision, actually. I knew I wanted to go to grad school. I was very lucky that I got free tuition for undergrad because that allowed me a little bit of wiggle room in terms of, like, I don't have a huge amount of debt going out of school.
Yeah, sure.
I can probably go to grad school now. And I thought, I want to move to Los Angeles. I want to be a filmmaker. I want to make sure that I'm doing this right because I had this feeling of I've got all the necessary creative things that I need, but I'm not sure I'm going about this the right way. It's like when you figure out a shortcut to do something in your own way, and then you just wonder, like, does the whole world do it differently than I do? It's like people who wipe standing up. I wonder if they ever, like, if someone's like, you wipe standing up, and they're like, oh my God, my life is a lie. And so I had all these little, like, filmmaking shortcuts and stuff, like, for making the film and for cutting the film and and I was like, I don't know if any of that's right.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, right.
So I decided that I wanted to apply to grad school. All the grad schools I applied to were in Los Angeles because I thought I want to be in California, I want to be in Los Angeles, and school is going to be a great way to meet a bunch of people who are going into this industry and will be in Los Angeles and doing this with me, which was a great, like, I think that was the best thing I got out of going to grad school was meeting a bunch of creative people who live around me.
Yeah.
I was meeting a lot of creative people in Boston, but our plans were so varied. A bunch of those people went to New York. Like, a lot of people went abroad.
Why didn't you go to New York? That's my favorite question to ask
New York
people.
has never really appealed to me.
Me too.
I'm not sure why, but I love visiting. Every time I'm there for work, I was recently there for a couple days for work, and I love that atmosphere.
It's like Vegas. You can only be there for 4 days, no more, though.
Yeah, completely.
No more.
Completely. I love the city. I just don't think that I would live there happily.
Yeah, right.
I'm not sure if I could do that. There's things that I miss about Boston that I know New York has. Like, I miss, like, public transportation, and I miss, like, I miss cold winters. I really genuinely do.
Weird, but yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
I'm
Sure.
such a weirdo. But I just don't think New York's really for me. I was yesterday. I had a shoot, and I was in the car with the actor, and he's from New York, and I was asking him, like, should I go live in New York at some point in my life? And he was like, if you haven't had the draw already, you probably, like, don't need to.
Yeah, right.
Like, people say you should live in New York before you're 30 or something like that or whatever, and it's just like, figure out your own shit, your own timeline. If you don't want to go somewhere, like, or do something, don't do it. I've been a big, like, proponent of that attitude in my life a lot because especially in film school and things like that, every person has an attitude that's like, oh, P.T. Anderson made like Hard 8 by the time he was 25 or whatever, and like there's a lot of that shit, and it happens in every industry. I feel like we can never objectively observe a piece of art and not then compare it to how old or how crippled or how blind, or it's always like the process needs to be included in the product, and I think you just need to be like, my own timeline is my own timeline. I also want to enjoy my life. I also want to like not be pressured. I don't want to make something for the sake of making it and things like that.
That's a really good outtake.
Yeah, I think that's always been a thing that I return to in my own life, is just like be comfortable with where you're at and make your own progress at its own time. And that was a cool thing about grad school too, was going to grad school. You're not competing with anybody but yourself if you have the right attitude. Like when I got there, nobody gives a shit about grades. Like, I don't think I checked my grades once throughout grad school. I graduated. I have a piece of paper that says that I'm a master.
I did that in undergrad, but it was a completely different scenario.
How bad is my dad going to be mad at me for these grades?
That's funny.
Yeah, I to go back to applying to grad school, last minute I applied to USC. I remember it was like midnight on the last possible day I submitted my application. And I was just like, yeah, whatever, like we'll see what happens. And then when I got the acceptance, it was an email, a really short email. I thought I was going to get like a packet or whatever, classically, like in the movies. I got an email that was like, congrats, you did it. Show up in the fall. And that's like all I got. And then I didn't get any other materials, and then showed up, and it was like everybody had like been in contact with each other and been to like networking events and like had packets and stuff. No. It's like that classic fear of like you show up and everybody knows each other and got a bunch of information that you didn't get. And maybe it was just that I threw the information in the trash by accident, but
yeah.
So it was. I was happy to go to USC. I think that it helped me in a lot of ways, but I also think that in terms of encouraging future filmmakers, it doesn't really matter what film school you go to. It doesn't matter if you don't go to film school at all. It's the same as the do your own timeline thing. Just decide what you need for your own personal development, and I think that great filmmakers are going to make great films no matter where they go or who they're with. You know, you just need to find inspiration in your own life.
So since going... That's really, really nice sentiment, I think. So after USC, you find yourself, you have this degree, you've made a handful of films anyways. Where did you go from there? How did you what was your next step? What was your next move?
At USC, I kind of established myself a bit as a cinematographer. People had always said, God, your films are so beautiful and like they're shot really well. And so I fell comfortably into shooting movies for other people because above all things, I think I've always valued my common sense. I don't think that I'm necessarily the most intelligent person. I don't think I'm as well read as I want to be. I don't think that I am good at a trivia night necessarily, although I'm an okay wild card to have. But I have always had common sense and strong logic. And so that applied to me in terms of photography in that it's basically watching films that you like, saying to yourself, well, what did they do? And then being able to discern the pieces of that you want to include in your own films. And so I love collaborating with people. I love trying to execute somebody else's vision and make things easy for them and take weight off somebody's back. So I fell very comfortably into being a cinematographer, and being really close to directors has been a great thing in my own life, just in terms of I get to be on set next to a ton of directors and learn what they're doing to interact with actors or to interact with the entire crew. And it's taught me much more than I ever could have learned in a directing class, just being on set with other people. So when I got out of school, I started shooting movies. I've shot a lot of short films and a couple features and music videos and all sorts of stuff like that. And that's like my job. That's my day job, is doing cinematography and camera operating.
And it's almost like you have to do it through word of mouth, or like
it's all word of mouth
to get started, and then once you have your own stuff to show people, hey, this is what I can do for you.
Yeah, exactly. And my entire ethos is be a good person and work really hard. That's all it is. And I think that's why I get rehired. I don't think I'm necessarily like a paragon of cinematography excellence or anything like that. I just think that I'm a good person to be around. And I happen to make things that look all right, but people hire me again and again because I'm just a good person to be around on set, I think.
Yeah.
And
that's why I brought you here. I didn't care about your story at all. I was like, I just want to hang out with Joel.
Yeah. And here I
am. All right, man. Well, we're wrapping up here. Do you have any advice for people that are trying? Because I know a ton of people that are trying to get into film and cinematography and directing. What's your advice? What's your advice to these people?
I will give sort of the classic Ira Glass advice, which he had a long quote where he said, as like artists, we see work that we like, and we start out with this taste, whatever your taste is. You see Star Wars and you're like, I like that. You see a Gus Van Sant movie, you're like, I like that. You see something else, I don't like that so much. So you have this taste, and then you start making stuff, and in the process of making stuff, your stuff is not your taste. You're like, I don't know. I didn't quite do that right. The actors weren't great. The cinematography wasn't great. I don't know. It just doesn't quite match up. But you need to keep making stuff so that your taste and your skill level eventually converges. That's the Ira Glass saying. And I completely agree with that. You have to do a lot of work. You have to get out there. Like for a comedian, you got to get out there and do mics. You know, for a filmmaker, you got to make stuff. You got to just like everybody has an iPhone in their pocket or some sort of phone in their pocket with a camera. Point that at stuff. Do random stuff. Dear John, the web series that I do with Brendan, we just shoot on an iPhone, no sound equipment. We go into a bathroom and we make this show. And it's ridiculously simple. It's utterly cheap. And it's just making stuff. It's engaging that creative ability in your own mind. So I would say put pen to paper, put paintbrush to canvas, just do whatever it is you want to do, which is pretty stock advice, but I really do think it's important. And then the other thing is the advice that I previously gave about timelines is just don't worry about anybody else's timeline. Like I know a lot of friends who are like, well, I really want to make a feature by the end of this year. And then I'm like, oh, so what's the movie? And they're like, I don't know what the movie is, but I want to make a feature. And it's like, well, you're not doing it in the right way or for the right reasons. Yeah. Just don't worry about what you should have done or what you have to do. Develop your own person and become who you want to be, and then you will want to tell a certain story.
I think that is all really good advice, number one. Number two, I think it's very not adult, but not even mature, but like you meet so many people here that you're right, and they're like, yeah, I'm gonna make a feature film by the end of the year, and you're like, well, what's it about? And they're like, I don't know yet. Yeah. That for you to have the exact opposite of that, I think is a very I don't think it's a common thing to be able to think like that and to really, really just do what you want to do and not worry about the timeline of anybody else. Mm-hmm. I think that's a tremendous attribute. Yeah,
my main advice would be don't do anything for so long that you then die and then you're dead and you don't care about anything.
I think Hugh Hefner would disagree, but cool, Joel. It was great having you. Do you have social media you want to plug besides the Dear John web series that you can find on YouTube?
Yeah, I would also plug my web series Dear Job, like you said, whereas it's basically monster.com, but it's a web series. No, Dear John, look up Dear John and the words bathroom or Joel on YouTube, and you'll find some episodes of those. They're really fun to do and hopefully come out really funny for the viewer. The feature that I shot a couple years ago, Elizabeth Blue, is on Amazon Prime if you guys want to watch that.
What? Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
And it's a really beautiful film. It's about mental illness and how to live with mental illness. It's really, really amazing. The director is super talented, and we should watch out for him in the future. Cool. His name's Vincent Sabella. And then on social media, I am Joel Marsh. Don't go on Twitter and look at that because I haven't tweeted in a long time. Although you can look at the backlog of tweets. Yeah. Got some gems in there. But Instagram, I'm slightly active. And email, you can email me at joelmarshfilms@gmail.com.
You're going to be getting like people that just want to date you.
Yeah. Hey, I hope so.
Got a question.
If you're out there and you're attracted to this voice and you're imagining a guy who has probably eaten over 1,500 Klondike bars in his life, then get at me.
Well, thanks again for coming in, Joel. Today, our musical guest is Anthony Dante. He's a really good friend of mine, college roommate. His EP just dropped a couple weeks ago. This song is called An Affair with the West. Take it easy, guys. We'll see you next time.
I see you smiling, all this new beauty that surrounds me. Feels like my future self is trying to keep you painted in. Oh, little mama, babe, forgive me for leaving you all alone. I let the voice in my heart take the reins. Baby, go home. Can't let the sunset on these mornings sway me away from your love. Can't let these drifters change my mind about the heavens above. You never catch your breath by holding that. You gotta let it out. Can't let these thoughts overwhelm me. Let them go somehow. And live here in the now. Part of growing up is finding the things that make you happy. That's what you're thinking when I'm holding you. Would you tell me? Is that western skyline all it calls me to a great unknown? Right between living out my life and keeping alone. Can't live around the safety of her eyes, even though they fill me up. Can't hold the beauty of these mountains, drink the whole creek from my cup. Can't stuff the sunset in my pockets, gotta let the light rain on down. Can't let these thoughts overwhelm me, let them go home. You know, let it try to come and find me, yeah. Let it try to come. Try to come and find me, yeah. Let it try, let it try, let it try. I see you smiling, all this new beauty surround